Hello, Ildi. How are you?
Nice to see you, Pooja. Uh,
Nice to see you too. It's always fun.
Absolutely, especially when we are going to do something really fun and interesting and
That's
special
true.
today. So
Yes.
I'm going to start with actually introducing us. This masterclass is going to be roughly half an hour, and it's going to give you a bit of an insight in productivity habits. How do they relate to each other? What does that mean from the perspective of our behavior? Because both of these things are very strongly related to human behavior, and maybe even talk to you a little bit more about this exciting project that we have with Pooja on the 7th of September, which is a full day workshop that will explore this topic in full extent and full depth. And what you'll see today is just a little bit of a glimpse of into this world of habits, behavior, productivity, and what can we do about it, because in the end we all want to be more productive and we all want to change our bad habits into good habits, but exactly what does that mean, and so on. So Pooja, shall we start with
Let's do
getting
that.
into it? Oh, before that, for those of you who don't know us, let us introduce ourselves.
Of
My
course.
name is Ildi Ratz, and my business is the Time Fix, and my specialty is helping small business owners and professionals not do this, regain more time and create more time for the things that are important, and create more time when it really counts. And
Yeah.
Pooja.
Well, my name is Pooja Kilkar and my business is Realign You. Now, I am a transformational coach. What does that mean? I'm a habit change practitioner and a neuro change practitioner as well, which means I use the brain and mind science to help you make changes in your life that can help you find the real you and will help you um, get to the point where you always wanted to be. So that's me.
Awesome. Now let's actually start sharing, because we did create a small presentation which will help us stay on track and stay on time, and that's my thing.
Yes.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about habits, productivity, and what does it mean, and how can we actually, and what can we actually do about this. So
Well, let's kick off with an amazing, amazing quote. And this is a quote that I really, really love because as you can see, it tells you about how you can build habits around the kind of idea that you have about yourself and your life. So let's start by reading this. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. And this is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. As you can see, the entire thread in this particular quote is all about how do you see yourself and where do you see yourself in your life, what it is about your life that excites you, and what can you do and what kind of habits can you create around that particular idea of yourself and your life, and what behaviors do you innately have that will help you create the destiny that you're wanting to create for yourself. Isn't that just beautiful to
it
know that
absolutely is.
your destiny is completely within your hands and it is not a matter of fate? And that's a very, very beautiful and empowering idea to have.
That's great, but it all starts with that little word, habit.
Habit. And what
So
does it mean?
absolutely. So what
Here
does
is,
that mean, Pooja?
here is what it means. So as we know, habit is a noun. And here is the dictionary definition of what a habit is. Habit is a memory-based habit-based propensities to respond automatically to specific cues, which are acquired by the repetition of cue-specific behaviors in a stable context.
Okay, now translate, please.
Yes, it is a very roundabout way to explain what really habits are, but it really, I would love for you all to concentrate on a few words over here, which are very, very important. First of all, it is automatic. Second is specific cues. Third is repetition. And the fourth is stable contexts. Now, what it means is that we are, if in a specific context you are faced with a certain cue, you would behave in the same manner, and that happens in a repetition. Now let's take the
Ah,
example of this amazing photo here.
coffee
Isn't
and
it
cake.
really coffee and cake? Why not? So if in the if you were able to actually sit in a cafe right now, which we can't due to all of these silly lockdowns, but if you were going to be able to sit in a cafe and have an array of cakes over there and you're really dying for a coffee, your automatic reaction may be that you want to reach out and have a piece of cake with that coffee. So that becomes a habit. How beautiful is that? Do we even think about all of these things? And that's why the word automatic becomes really, really important when you're talking about habits.
Absolutely, and I guess, and you'll be talking about this, but it actually
Yes,
is. This is probably why it is so hard to actually identify habits and work with them. Uh,
definitely.
but in saying that, the other big thing that we are going to talk about today is productivity. And we use this word a little bit differently, all of us. We kind of think that we are talking about the same thing, but the reality is that this word productivity means something different to every single one of us. Every single one of us thinks about productivity from their own special perspective, from based on your own experiences and so on. But when it comes to definitions, and I love definitions because Pooja and myself, both of us are speaking more than one language. So to us, language is important because it is the base of communication. And when you speak more than one language, you realize the power of words. It's so easy to forget as an English speaker that every word has a weight, and every weight is different depending on what is your baggage behind you. So let's start with a generic definition, just like Pooja did with the habits. So if we look at the dictionary, productivity is the efficiency of production of goods or services expressed by some measure. And I guess the most important few things in, no, that was weird.
Yeah,
Most important bits, because it's more than one, is that productivity has to be measured in some shape or form.
absolutely. That is so important. I was about to say that to you, Ildi.
So the reality is that unless you are measuring it by some standard, productivity has no meaning. So when you think that you can get away without having any kind of goals, or without having any kind of vision or direction, or if you can get away without having clear standards, the reality is that you will never be able to be productive, because productivity is tightly connected to some shape and form of measurement. So when we talk about productivity, we always have to think about by what standard. What does productivity mean to you, and what does productivity mean to your environment, and how do these two different standards connect and meet? So virtually everything and anything that we do in between is going to be defined by that measure and and the concept of productivity in our own world, in our own bubble, if you like.
That's absolutely true, because unless you have defined any of that, it's really hard to look at what changes do you really need to make to get into that mindset of, being productive. And that's where the characteristics of habits become really, really important. Like I had said to you before, when we looked at the definition of habits, I said you really need to be mindful of a few words. And the most important word in habits is context, which is cued. First of all, there is a cue to every behavior that you do that then turns into a habit. There's routine, there's reward, and automaticity. Now, remember one thing: human beings will always behave in a way that they get a reward from it, whether it is good or detrimental to you. There's always a reward system attached to anything that you do. Say, for example, and let me lead into this with an example, because it's much more easier to understand the characteristics of behavior when you look at an example. Say, for example, let's just take the very common habit that common, rather a very regular habit that all human beings have and should have, that is brushing your teeth. Now, that is something you
That was
cannot get
funny.
by, isn't it? You have to brush your teeth in the morning and at night. So if let's take the brushing of your teeth context in the morning, right? The habit. Now, for me, for example, the moment I jump out of bed, I have to go to the bathroom and brush my teeth, right? So my context and my cue is getting out of bed. The routine is going to the bathroom and picking up my toothbrush. The reward at the end of doing that behavior is having a clean, fresh mouth before I speak to anybody. That is fairly automatic. I don't put thought towards it. Anyone who's listening to this masterclass, stop for a minute and think, do you really think about brushing your teeth? You're thinking about everything else that you probably are going to do in the day than actually brushing your teeth. It's a very automatic behavior. You're not putting thought to it. You're not thinking, okay, now I'm going to pick up the brush, put the toothpaste on it, then I'm going to put the brush in your mouth. You're not thinking about any of those steps. It's become that automatic. So that is the very, very definition of habit. So there's always going to be a context and the cue to that habit. There's going to be a routine, which means it's done pretty much at the same time every day or every week or whatever it is that you're thinking about. There's always a reward at the end of it, and it is fairly automatic. And that's where the habit loop becomes really important to understand. And that's how habits are formed. So every habit must have a cue, routine, and reward. And that's how the loop keeps going round and round. Now, this is another one that is my favorite one,
I
right?
just wanted to say, I love that the wine. And you know
You
what?
do, don't you?
The
Yeah.
reality is that we don't think about the fact that actually some of these loops are happening to us without realizing what we're doing, and this is probably where the good habit, bad habit kind of concept comes in place. And it's really interesting because I'm Pooja, is this a good habit or a bad habit? Because I can't really
Well,
decide right now.
it completely depends upon the
There you
individual,
go.
because every individual is different. Every individual's reason to do something is completely different, right? Now,
But what I wanted really to say here is that what we don't think about when it comes to habits and rituals is that unfortunately we try to label good and bad, good habits and bad habits, and often because we focus on change and we want to change something, we focus more on the bad habits. But we do have an amazing amount of good habits and good rituals that we actually use on a regular basis. And your example about the toothbrushing is probably one of the best ones, because it's one
exactly.
that we do automatically and we don't think about it, and it actually serves us.
It does serve us. And that's why most of the times when I'm talking to my clients or anyone who wants to change a habit, I first of all get them out of the mindset of good and bad, because there are habits that serve us and there are habits that don't serve us. And that is what is most important. The moment you start thinking about bad, you're getting into that negative mindset, which is already detrimental for you to make any kind of change. So what needs to be established is whether a habit is going to serve you or not serve you in the grand scheme of things, right?
Really
Now,
right.
there you go. This particular example. Now, so in this case, the cue is to come home and really stressed out with work and everything. The routine is to open a bottle of wine, and then the reward is feeling relaxed. Now, why are you doing this? Is because you're craving stress relief. Now, this can be either good or this can be detrimental to you. If this is happening regularly and you find yourself not sticking to one glass or finishing 2 or 3 bottles, and every time it increases the amount, it lands up being borderline alcoholic, then it's
Sure.
probably detrimental to you. But if it is something that you do as a routine, like you do 1 glass of wine occasionally, I don't think that could be too much of a detriment to anyone. However, if it is something that you think is getting out of hand, then probably breaking that particular routine. So there are techniques where you can change that, but we can talk about that a little bit more in our workshop. But changing that particular routine is where you can then break the loop. But there are ways to change it. The only way you can change something is when you make the unconscious or the subconscious conscious by actually thinking about it. Because a lot of these things, as I said, is automatic and you're not putting thought to it. And the only way to make any changes is to bring it to your fore, to bring it to your conscious mind, and then make those conscious changes that are required to make any kind of change that you want to make. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense? Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I'll still let you continue on this because I think it's
Yeah.
really important to
Very, very
uh,
important.
talk a little bit about the type of habits, and especially that we did touch already on the, whether it serves you or not serves you. And I guess I like that way because good habits and bad habits has such a negative connotation, even when you talk about the good habits, because it assumes that you have a set of bad habits. While when you talk about whether a habit is serving you or not, I think it's a much better way of phrasing it and allowing yourself to embrace both sides and run with them.
That's absolutely true. And another thing is that you have to understand that the good and bad definition is a social construct, right?
True.
It is the definition of good and bad is extrinsic. It is being set by the society or your community that is outside of yourself. It's time now to go inside and see what is serving you and your purpose and your values and your vision, right? And to be able to do that, first of all, we need to be able to classify the kind of habits that we probably have. Now, productivity habits, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about it when you start talking about productivity. But productivity habits obviously is whether you're scheduling your work, you're decluttering your workspace or your home regularly, or using a taskmaster, or any kind of productivity habits that you might have around it. Physical habits are obviously regular exercise, nutrition, regular breaks. And then you have mental habits as well. Believe it or not, the way we think is also a habit, because that happens automatically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
And look, the reality is that, again, when it comes to productivity, you have to remember that it's not just those things that we classify as productivity, which is exactly what Pooja was saying: scheduling
yes,
your work, regular declutter, task manager, and so on. Actually, it's part of that of the productivity habits is the fact that you get up and you go to work. It
that's
is
right.
literally a thing that we don't think about. We just simply do it. In saying
Exactly.
that, nowadays, because we are more and more stuck at home, or many of us are working from home, it's really important to recognize that as much as you used to have a productivity habit that was taking you to work, it was giving you that time to actually set yourself up for work. You have to create the same nowadays that you're home. What does
That's
that
right.
mean? You might say it means that you need to create your own little ritual, your own setup for work, which can be still change into something more professional. Put on runners. The power of runners. I talk about it all the time. And
That's right.
if you're wondering what that is, just remind me in the workshop when you are going to be there with us for a whole day, to tell you the story around the runners and the power of the runners, because that's just brilliant. But setting up your day for work is part of the productivity habits, and the same goes the other way. At the end of the day, winding down and making sure that you actually
I
create
was
an
about to
end
go
to
there.
the day. I know you are. Is as important, because without that, you will stay in that space of constant spinning and constant working. And this is where the overwhelm kicks in, the
Absolutely.
procrastination kicks in. And
Absolutely.
Pooja can tell you even more about this. But
And also, there's one thing to be mindful of. While over here, I've made a list of habits that are types of habits. In all of these types, there's beneficial habits that are serving you, and then there are habits that are not serving you. Over here, I've just put down habits that are probably would serve anybody if you did that. But obviously within these habits, then there are ones that serve you and ones that don't serve you. Obviously, we have those classifications already mentioned. But what you're saying, Ildi, is so important when you think about productivity. It has both ends to it. Getting yourself started up and getting yourself wound down as well is equally important.
plus, we don't think about these things as habits, which is really interesting, because
That's
just
right.
like Pooja mentioned before, especially when you have good habits already there, they are automated. They just happen. You don't think about them. While now, having a different set of circumstances actually is forcing us to think about these things and to create new habits that we can tap into, and new rituals that we can tap into. And I think it's so important. I mean, what's a ritual?
Very
A ritual
important.
is a set of habits. Am I right, Pooja?
It is a set of habits, but something that you do quite mindfully as well, a little bit.
Absolutely. So the reality is that one of the biggest issues when it comes to habits and rituals is the question of, how do I identify them? How do I bring them to the conscious mind, to the front of mind? And how can I actually realize that I am acting right now in a loop, in a ritual, or in a habit? And not just bringing it to the front of mind, but actually qualifying it and making sure that I I create awareness around whether this habit is serving me or not. Because if it's on autopilot, then it's really hard to actually recognize whether that habit is one that is serving me or not. So one of I did put three things that actually are quite great ways of identifying habits and rituals. And I would even say that it's worth thinking about those cues that Pooja was talking about, because those cues are the triggers. And simple things like realizing that you wake up and you feel sluggish, and you sit down in front of the computer and you still feel sluggish, realizing that something's wrong is a cue already. So what can I do about it? Oh, I can have a coffee, I can go change, I can have another shower, I can do a lot of things to actually snap out of that state of low energy and shift it into something good, but only if you recognize that something's not going the right way, or is not going the way that you would like it to go. So one of the biggest things is observation. You really need to realize and observe, how do you feel, how does that thing that you are actually doing makes you feel. And uh, if you stick to the current path, where would that lead you? So there's no right or wrong answer, I guess.
No.
It's really just recognizing and looking at the patterns almost like an observer, and understanding whether that is serving you or not. The
And
other way to do this, oh, go
yeah,
for it, Pooja.
sorry, just when you said observer, that is a very important word, because you need to be objective about yourself. The moment you bring in judgment, you will not be able to do any kind of changes. That is
Totally
a
agree.
very, very important, I think, about observation. You need to do it without judgment of yourself.
Absolutely. And this is
Yeah.
why I said that there's no right or wrong. There's
No.
no good or bad. There's
Yeah.
just, is this thing actually serving my current needs or not?
Yeah.
And a habit that is great today might not be a good one tomorrow. So for example,
Absolutely.
if I feel sick and I'm not on top of my ball game, then stopping at 9 o'clock in the morning and going back to bed is a good habit. While if you
That's
start
right.
to think about the fact that, let's say, you have no reason to feel bad, but you're still feeling sluggish, then it's really just a case of you can't really go back to bed at 9 o'clock. You really have to push through and find a way to become productive and get through your workday. So what I mean by this, the habit itself of going back to bed uh, can be good in some instance and can be a bad habit in another instance. So it's really the observation and qualifying the habit itself in the context of behavior, and what does that mean and how does that connect with what you are doing right now. Now, if I go a bit more pragmatic and I look at exactly what you're doing and use that as a base of identifying habits and rituals, having time logs and literally writing down what you're doing by, I don't know, 15-minute increment or half an hour increment, it depends on what kind of work you're doing, is a great way to capture what you're doing. And it's a great way of recognizing the patterns in your work day and in your work week, and of course the work month. So it's an amazing tool to help you identify habits and rituals and recognize patterns, and then think about them as, are they actually serving me from the context of work or not? Are they the right ones for what I'm doing or not? And how can you go about it? And this is one of the things that I do on a regular basis with the clients and my clients. And we literally go through time logs because we need to understand, where does time go? There's no good or bad again. There's just a way of looking at time and understanding where does your time go is the first step in recognizing what do you need to change if you need to change. And of course, the last bit that I've put there is planners. Now, no matter whether you have a paper planner or a digital planner, the reality is that planners are probably the best tools to capture and keep things in line, and actually making sure that there's a space where you can capture on a regular basis and where you can actually plan ahead and change those patterns. Visualizing the information that you want to happen is one of the best ways to alter habits and rituals, and it is the best support tool to help you see the patterns and change the patterns and redesign the patterns so that they serve your core needs. Did I leave something out there? I don't think so.
No, I think that's very, very important. Again, throughout that, it is about just observing yourself first, because unless you've observed your own behavior, it's really hard to make any changes if you ever wanted to.
Absolutely. And look, it's like a big puzzle. You are
Yes,
actually putting pieces together, and sometimes the pieces do fit perfect, and some other times you actually have to craft a piece to actually fit in, because
that's right.
you may have lost that piece
Yeah.
or not even have it at all. And I'm not sure about you, but it's so annoying when you have almost the whole puzzle and you're just missing one tiny little piece.
That's
Uh,
true. It is the most annoying thing. You keep looking at that little space over there, like
and you
what's
know
going
what it
there?
looks like, but you're not
Yes,
filling it in. So what I really wanted you to realize here is that there is a very close connection between productivity habits and rituals, and this goes around, and just like Pooja mentioned before, that loop is always there. So in order to be productive, you have to have the right set of habits that will create the right set of rituals, and the right set of rituals will support productivity in whatever shape or form or meaning that you might have to that word productivity.
that's
It's
right.
really, really important to have clarity that if you change any of your habits, that will affect your rituals and that will affect your productivity. If you want to become more productive, then you will actually have to change habits and rituals. And if you have some rituals that you are using on a regular basis, they will actually affect your habits, and what goes into them. And of course, again, they connect really closely with productivity, and they will affect how you look at productivity and what is the outcome of your productivity. So it's quite important to have clarity around the fact that these three are connected, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why sometimes it's really hard to break out of that loop if you've created something that is not beneficial for you.
And you know what? I guess the other thing that oh, here's a really good one. I could say now, who here uses this sentence on a regular basis when they are asked, so how are you? I'm busy. How cool is that? Well, the problem with this word busy is that you can be busy and not productive, and you can be busy and be extremely productive. You can be busy and do nothing. So unless you qualify this word busy, it actually doesn't mean a thing. And yet, on a regular basis, we use this word and we throw it at anyone. And I often wonder, what exactly do you mean by this?
That's
Do
right.
you just mean that you don't want to talk to me and you just want me to go away?
That's right.
Or you're genuinely busy and you really have to get through things in order to stay productive and to actually smash out your to-do lists and to actually get things done. So it's quite a really important thing that if possible, please stay away from this word busy.
That's so true. It can get quite an annoying word to use, actually.
Absolutely. Qualify it. Don't say that I'm busy.
No.
Say that I have a very productive day,
Yeah.
or say that I actually had a slower day. I still got things done. There's a lot of ways to actually get around that word busy and not just throw it to someone, because on its own, it's meaningless. It's just one of those words that feel. But here's the danger, and oh, I love this topic, as you can see.
Yeah.
The danger of actually using the word busy and throwing it at someone else and saying, I'm busy, is that you hear yourself.
That's right.
Your mind and subconscious will say, oh, she's busy.
I
So
was going
actually
to say that.
create that cloud of busyness around you. And suddenly, instead of being productive, you will be just busy.
Busy. That's absolutely true. Words have a power. You are creating the situation that you are creating for yourself using these kinds of words. So,
Absolutely.
and
So
also using that as an excuse to get rid of someone is really not a very, very good way of getting rid of someone, because
yeah, but I
people
mean,
really,
Pooja, I'm leaving it to you to get it out. Is it now? Does
that's
she
true.
what? So what's
What?
exactly
Yeah.
happening with it?
Yeah,
So it's quite an interesting thing how we use words without really thinking about their deeper meaning, and using this word busy is one of the most common ones that I think they are not really serving us.
that's right.
And this leads me into the other thing, which is around productivity. I often get this question, or not even question. People use these words, diary, planner, calendar, pretty much, I don't know, like without really thinking about it. It's like having a dinner set with, with your dessert fork and your, um, what's it called, entree fork and
Yes.
the main fork. And when you look at the three, they are all forks. And someone might say, what the heck? It doesn't really matter. But the
Yeah.
reality is that it does matter which one you use and when. Because if you use your dessert fork to eat your mains, it will take you a long time.
Yes.
So
Yes, you'll be
also,
sitting at the dinner table for God knows 2 hours.
plus, if you use your dinner fork, the main fork to eat your dessert, it will mean that you can't savor the sweetness, the beauty of the dessert. So it really matters. And it goes down again to those words. What do they mean? And I didn't put the word calendar on this slide, but the calendar, by definition, is nothing more than the structure of the year. It is a definition of how we make sense of time right now. It is the definition of how we look at time, and what does time look like to us today in 2021.
Yes.
Yes, I had to think about that. The perks of lockdown. Time is a bit fluid. But the
It
reality is
is.
that when you say that you grab your calendar, I'm here to tell you that probably you can't really do that because you are really not making sense when you're grabbing your calendar. But here's the thing: many of us have a bit of a confusion around diaries and planners, and when do I use planner and when do I use diary, and what do I grab and when, and so on. So probably the easiest way to explain this is that the diary is literally a tool that will hold sequentially all those things that will need to happen. It's pretty much your appointments, the things that are already clearly uh, will happen in the future, and they need to be recorded somewhere. That's a diary. Or if you go on the other side, it is pretty much a collection of your thoughts for the day or for the week or for the month. Again, it is a collection of information that is literally linear. While a planner is a magical place, because a planner gives you the choice to look at time from a bigger angle, and to actually look at time from a bigger perspective. What does that mean is that you see the collection of appointments and anything and everything that you had in a diary from a bigger perspective at once. When you say, I'm going to grab my diary, whether you like it or not, your mind will straight go to your next appointment, because that's what the word means. While when you grab your planner, and it might look exactly the same as your diary, but if you use your tool as a planner, whether you like it or not, your mind will open and you will actually think about a bigger amount of time, usually a week. That's pretty much the bare minimum that we think about when it comes to planning.
And and also I believe planners are important to create that vision that you want to have for yourself. It's to create that big picture of yourself in, god knows, 4, 5, 6, 10 years time. Doesn't matter what kind of person you are, you need to have that bigger vision for yourself, for your family, for your business or your work, whatever it is that you do in life. Planners help you have that vision, that big
Also,
picture.
if we tie it back a little bit to that business and productivity, the reality is that if I'm always thinking about the next thing that will pop up in front of me, that creates business.
That does.
I'm just thinking about the stuff that I need to do right now. While when you're thinking about planner, the planner is literally the best productivity tool, because you have the power to change things. When
Absolutely.
you look at the diary, it's always the next bit, so you don't see further than your next step. While when it comes to the planner, it's like lifting your head and looking ahead to the end of the street and planning. How many turns do I have to take? How many puddles do I have to avoid? I don't know, how many corners do I have to stop at and wait for cars to actually pass? So you can actually look at things from a bigger perspective, which means that the busyness that clouds your judgment is less likely to kick in, and it is less likely to stop you on your tracks. Because
Absolutely.
otherwise, the busyness will just kick in and it will keep
Yeah.
you stuck in this moment, in this little bubble. So, if anything, for today, I guess the biggest challenge would be start using your diaries as planners. Change the word. And when you open next time that book, no matter what that is, or the electronic version of it, just think about it as a planner. When you make an appointment, open your planner, not your diary, and start regaining control when it comes to what's happening in your life.
So true, so true. And once you start doing that, that's again a habit as well. Remember, the mental habits that you have are also revolving around the kinds of words that you use about different aspects of your life, and they influence the way you start seeing things. It's so important to think like that.
Now, I guess we kind of arrived to the end of what we wanted to share with you today. And if you found it a bit valuable, and if you think that you need a bit more, and if you want to now this time deep dive on great, now I have an understanding of habits, and I have an understanding of productivity, but how can I connect it from my own perspective? And if you want to learn a little bit about how your behavior is actually affecting these two, because who you are, how you were raised, how you present yourself in the world, but who you are at you know, at heart, all affects the way that you build your
Absolutely.
habits. It affects the way that you look at productivity. It affects the way how you treat time in general, and it affects the way that you connect your habits with your productivity. And we really hope that we can give you a really good insight on your own personal perspective on this topic in this workshop. And obviously, a half an hour masterclass is not enough to not
Definitely
even
not.
scratch the surface of it.
It's not even scratching the surface. There's so much more to it, from the individual perspective. And it's more important and empowering to understand what it really means for you as a person instead of what it is, because one size fits all does not work. It
No,
has to be quite specific
and
to you and your world.
absolutely. And we didn't even speak about the fact that we are conditioned sometimes to think
Yes,
in some certain ways. You might be in industries where you are expected to do things one way, even though you could actually achieve exactly the same result by going a little bit differently. Sometimes just looking at your habits and understanding um, the back end of your habits will help you to alter them, or not even alter them, but actually look at them from a different perspective, so you can be more productive, so that you
exactly.
can allow yourself to think differently and own habits and productivity. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is a very key word, to own all of this. Is that is your own thing. So own something that is your own. Let's just say it
Absolutely.
that way.
Oh gosh,
I
it's,
just
it's
coined a
funny.
phrase.
Anyway, if you are wondering what's this whole thing on the screen, the QR code will take you straight into this workshop. But if you are more of a type it in kind of person, then there's the link at the bottom of the slide. On the 7th of September, we are going to go live for a full day. It says 9 to 4, but we are considering with Pooja to push it back to 9:30, just because if we are not in lockdown, then 9 o'clock is very much
School drop-off times.
full drop off time. So we might actually push it back a little bit to 9:30. And in that case, it will go roughly to 4:30 p.m. And it's going to be full of fun
Full of fun.
activities. There's a bit of homework to do with it, so that you truly walk away with at least understanding your basic behavioral styles, so that you understand who you are and how do you present in the real world. What do you think about yourself right now? Because that's another big thing, and it really ties in with habits, and it
True.
affects the way that you become productive. So
Absolutely.
I guess that's pretty much it from us, Pooja. uh,
Absolutely. I hope, and we hope to see you all there. And we leave you with this amazing other quote that is both our favorite, by Eleanor Roosevelt. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So if you are dreaming about something and you don't know how to reach there, start believing in it. And know that we are here to help you reach there.
Absolutely. And we're here to actually help you take that first step towards your dreams,
Absolutely.
and towards being able to believe that you can achieve whatever you put your mind to. Because in the end, that's the only way. You have to take that
Absolutely.
first step. Anyway, we're looking forward to seeing you on the 7th. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Um, I believe we're going to have a link where you can just click and send us a message. And we're looking forward to having you and working with you on the 7th of September. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thank you.